Good morning, everybody. Well, the fear of missing out is certainly a powerful thing in this market, and this buyers just can't wait for any kind of a pullback here. So we're gapping up into price resistance on the S&Ps, and let's push this out a little bit. We can see the overlapping bars up there, the 20 MA. It's going to create a sizable void in the spiders and SPX, which opens up the door to a retracement. And looking at the way it went up here pre-market, was straight up. In other words, it didn't go up like down here where it had this little dip, and over here where it had this little sideways price action right there. As it went into the end of the day there, it rose up, and you can see the time at the bottom there. And then overnight, it went sideways. And what triggered the move at 2,300? I don't know. Maybe foreign markets rallied. I have no idea. But you can see it's just straight up China. Here we go, China again. We're back to China this time now. Oh, is China taking over America, Deb? Everybody's loving that, or Joe sell China, America to China? I don't know. Yeah. So here we got to run up right up into this area of congestion there. Hasn't reached quite the peak of it, which is, the top of these two bars right there. But you can see momentum has stalled. They say easing the variant was the cause for rally. Yes. What are we going to do when there isn't any more variance to drive the market lower? And this one lasted what? A week before it terrified the world, and now it's okay. And we're taking China's evaluation of what's going on here. My goodness. Anyway, we've got a price void below based on this rally. It's been going sideways for a bit here. It's at resistance. What do you do in a situation like this? Well, one thought is it rolls over and short the futures for a move down here. It's certainly something to consider. It popped up here and came in. Usually at the open, when you have these kind of rallies, there's a last attempt to push it up, and sometimes popping above. And I would just love that if I saw this pop above those highs and come right back in again. I'm going to short, whether it's this or I'm going to look at the other markets here, but avoid below a climactic run into an area of resistance and so on. Now, from an intermediate term perspective, the retracement up into this area has to be considered a positive versus this sideways price action having resulted in a move to the downside. Now, this market is one in which erratic, whippy sets new levels of those words. So would any of us be surprised to see a gap and a big red bar closing at the low of the day today? I don't think so. But, the tell is going to be whether it can hold on to this gap up into this area of resistance and go sideways here, or if it does sell off, become a bottoming tail bar by the end of the day. We'll go sideways. Well, obviously we have to see, but, looking at the spiders here, the ETF, we left yesterday with this sloppy pattern of trading inside the range with a last dip, little push, there, and where it cleared the high. But overall, the majority of trading was in the side of that range there, which to me, this is just a mess. And yeah, trying to bottom here, which way is it going to go? And now it gaps up into the area where sellers were super aggressive. Right? That Looking at these bars, maybe it's not so clear on first look, but realize this bar closed at the low of the day. And then the next morning, it gaps up almost to the high and rallies up here and collapses back down. So it's a wild, whippy pattern. And now it gaps up into, these highs over here. And you can see the same sideways price action. We'll see how this unfolds. Looking at the NASDAQ, clearly it's violated its uptrend, and it's been the weaker. It held the 50. This marginally cleared the prior high, which is the top of the red bar there. And this is a good example of why looking beyond to the left is subjective as resistance. That's what you see here. Excuse me, is that like these areas right here, which are called minor resistance, because prices went down through them already. But in reality, if you look closely, if you went down and look at a smaller time frame, you're going to see that there's a stall in the downside move here. And prices went up through this and came right back down. So while this often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of resistance area, stall point, because everybody's looking at it, in reality, what's there is this void. Now, so this brings us to, well, how do you deal with this? Well, as long as it stays bullish, well, you can continue to go long. It's got to deal with, what everybody's looking at right here, the moving average, the S&Ps at resistance and so on. But an ability to make a higher low is viable, the right type of a pattern, of course, or sideways and continuation move up. Again, we'll see how this unfolds. It's in a downtrend. It's at some type of price resistance here, and it's stalled. And so we'll see now where this day ends. The Qs, to look at the gap in relation to a market that doesn't show the gap. And we see it's at 392-ish to 394-ish. Same thing. You just see a complete bar on the future. So it's gapping up to the area just below the area of the 20 MA, which often is going to be a place where sellers will show up just based on that. But seeing where it is on the hourly chart, there's no price resistance there. None. Because the way it came down, which makes it a pretty tricky place to think, oh, I'm going to short this because it's at the 20 MA. Some people will do it, but there's no pattern there. So looking at this is an example where it's helpful to use the pre-market data to see that this is going sideways, and it could either roll over, it could pop up here and get slammed back down, type of shock pattern that we talked about in MT Live recently. So a type of a shock pattern could be a trigger for a short-term shorting opportunity. The Dow was leading yesterday. It led the way down and led the way up, and it cleared this resistance here, but now up to the next. And at the moment, it's above the declining 20 MA. And maybe it just keeps pushing till it gets to the top of this area up there. 36,000. We'll see. The others are at resistance. That's why we keep an eye on all of these markets to see, does one have a void? Do two have a void? Is one at resistance? Which one might, lead the other? So this has room to go up, but again, like the others, it's a little extended there and it's stalled for the moment. Diamonds, they don't trade that actively. 356, gapping into an unfilled gap. All right, so now, and without looking at this instead of the futures, why we do this is to get a point of view from a instrument based on the same data, right, but doesn't trade 24 hours. Are there gaps to be dealt with? So yes, there's an unfilled gap right in this area. And of course, there should be sellers there. But because of this, the depth of the retracement on the weekly, it makes a more attractive type of buy setup on the weekly time frame. However, this is Tuesday. It's got to hold on to the gain. So if we were to see a green bar at the end of the week, right, that would look at that as being a buy setup if it triggers above. Now, it also, this type of setup could trigger by just trading above a red bar. It's not the ideal scenario because it's spiking down at the time. And this angle of retracement is a bit steep, would be having another sideways bar before it actually would trigger above a prior bar's high. Russell, as you know, has been crushed. That breakout that occurred from the weekly time frame completely failed. It was down at the bottom of the base, and buyers just whipping back and forth, right? Sometimes we refer to this as a Christmas tree pattern. It's because red, green, red, green, red, green, and now it pushes up into the 200 end price resistance. And you can see it right there. And it's an area. So another one right at price resistance where sellers will be there. They're there already, just not in a great force, but we've got this little this type of a correction bar there, and where it pops above the highs, like from a little micro time frame right here. This is kind of sloppy, but there are individuals trading these contracts with 30-second charts, 20-second tick charts, some really, really tiny little time frames, trying to scalp a couple of ticks out of things. So, they look at those little time frames and look at what's going on. And like right here, it's like, okay, let's buy this and grab a few ticks out of it. And it works. You have to be nimble, but see what happened on the higher time frame. Now you've got a little shock pattern where it cleared the highs. And those that maybe, the analogy of taking a knife to a gunfight, meaning they're not using software that can manage their trade automatically, meaning, okay, I'm long, and it automatically puts in a stop loss because these things can move super fast, faster than you can think, oh, should I get out? And, you're going to be stopped out. Whereas by the time you grab the mouse, it's probably already down a point or so before you even press it. So you have to have the tools to trade intraday. I can get it with any instrument, but especially these because they move fast. All right. Silver, right, bottoming out here. Right? Set an alert above these highs. We've got gold trying to turn up from that price resistance. We've got oil, right? Got extended to the downside, coming back up. Weekly's beautiful uptrend there, pulling back, and a little retest pattern here, just like pulling back when we looked at the other weekly time frame of the Dow. Pulling back, we don't want to see this trade above a prior week's high. The pattern gets messy. We want to see it stay down here, maybe pull back again and get a W type of a pattern on the daily, and to where this then starts to turn up. So this is the hourly. Right? This here, we'd like to see this. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Right. This is the weekly down here. But looking at these patterns, I look at them and I think, well, I view them all in the same way of the analysis, but I would look for this to continue to move lower before triggering a buy. This down here, green bar that's not done, still bring me back to the bias of this would be great to form a W pattern, because that's how I like to trade climactics, where they come down and they go too far and they pop back up again. They don't get very far to the upside and then come down and retest it. And that's a much higher probability pattern. But sometimes they just go up, and you got to make a decision. Do I trade these? Do I not? If I do trade it, well, I'm going to trade it much smaller position, because especially here, the bars are so big. Where am I going to put my stop? You got to give it room. Bitcoin was gapping down yesterday. Talked about it on the 200 MA, even though it was below the 50,000 level in the morning. We talked about this is where buyers should want to step up, and they did. And this has now left a lot of buyers holding losses here. You remember, we talked about those. Dan and I mentioned that there were those talking about Bitcoin was going to be at 100,000 by the end of the year. And that kind of thought probably, brought buyers into this area here. And this breakdown failure, little shakeout, supported that it could start moving back up again. But yesterday foiled that for now. We'll see how much this comes off of this low. And the Bitcoin related stocks also bounced up off of that low there. And transports, well, I got interest rates here. Coming back up off of the low. We looked at TBT yesterday, coming all the way back down to the bottom of this trading range there. So it's up here a little bit, and that'll help the financials today, which looked terrible yesterday, even though the markets were rallying. So maybe some of the financials might be go-to stocks today, where they get some relief with these interest rates popping up there. Transports had a decent day, with the, this stay-at-home stocks, variant stocks. Prior to that, what was improving, the cruise lines, the airlines, the casinos, they were starting to improve. Then they fell apart. Now they're bouncing. So, trading this market in the short term requires a seat belt and maybe some kind of a harness to stop yourself from wailing around in the seat as prices flip back and forth. Anyway, it is what it is. At some point, things will calm down again. And I talked about the other day how prices stay pretty consistent in range when there's certainty in the markets. And when there's uncertainty, things flail back and forth as they have been. And so today's gap up is still part of that flailing back and forth. Today, it's with a gap, and we'll see how it ends up at the end of the day. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. All right, so all our opens are fine. We had a ton of put spreads on the weekend letter, but so many of them didn't get filled yesterday with the strength gap up. And diamonds, we were trying to do a put spread too. This was the best of the four horsemen for a turn. We're going to be talking about MT Live tomorrow, bottoming and topping patterns, and big old one here, there's one here, topping pattern. So another timely subject with Bitcoin bouncing. We sat through some pain on this Mister, so hopefully our 580s for Friday, melting ice cube. Then we have Boeing. So Boeing with the airlines bouncing, that hopefully looks like we're out of the woods on that short put. Jets, we were stalking yesterday, capping up here a little bit, but the turn day is easier to get in than the 500-point gap up the next day. So, that's where the internals help us. All right, some gappers here. Ballard, I haven't looked at this one in a while, but wow, look at this thing gapping all-time highs. Wow, look at this 1, 2, 3 down here in July. Gap reversal, 1, 2, 3 at resistance with a price void. Then you got a bear sandwich. Then you had a buy setup with a minor bear sandwich. Wow, that had 3 beautiful weekly entries there. But we'll watch it on a pullback. PayPal is still posted as a put spread over last week's high. Today, maybe it's the day, I don't know. But it's sure still lagging. It did not participate in yesterday's rally at all, but I like that the weekly's climactic support over here from 2020. That thing's got clobbered. So that got to keep it on your watch list every day. let the stock tell us when it wants to go. Riven, we were actually, recent IPO, EV stock. There was a number of things turning yesterday morning, but we were waiting for the close. And this is now a range expansion bar. That's not a pattern to buy it at all. But that's a potent reversal. So put spread idea. And so talking about EVs, Tesla is a mess, but nice gap up today. Look at these major resistance that's gapping over, and there's still a price void. So this could be a day trade. I just heard a glimpse of Elon Musk complaining about the government's subsidies for the industry, and they're obviously, it's the socialist government we have there. They're favoring unions and all. And Elon, the one comment I heard was, oh, then why don't they subsidize gas stations? And that, to me, that's an excellent point. Don't subsidize anything. Let the free market settle it out. CSX, one of you in the green room mentioned this yesterday. Looks great, daily, weekly, monthly. Oh, talking about gappers here, Valley, we're bottoming pattern. Tomorrow's course, well, not course, MT Live. We've been in this for a couple of days now, and now we're up nicely. So I'm going to be looking. You know what? We're just going to sell an added money call spread 5-minute low. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. SI. Gapping down. That's an ugly mess. Amazon was also an open. It triggered yesterday, but as a put spread, but we didn't get our credit. Falarian FLR, that's an EV, right? Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's a trading range, bullish daily, weekly. Yeah, that's a definite watch. Falarian, yeah, it's going on the list. Sensor 39 and change, so it's gapping. Well, there's only one print. There's kind of light volume. We'll come back to you. And Ken, that's a great statement right there. Zulu, we did some trades on yesterday. That's gapping up, looks fine. Mime, $80, bullish gap, but gap's too big, and yeah, we'll come back to it. Sumo gapping down a little bit, relative weakness. I think it had earnings. Coup was nasty gap to 160. It's recovering here a little bit. We'll come back. Here's a nasty gap down to $40. Wow. I don't know what's up with that. I think it had earnings or lack thereof. This is a new bio that's been moving around with, I think, the new variant thing. GSK. I'm shocked this isn't up more. I read a headline that said that their medicine works on Omicron. So why the heck is this not ripping? Strange, but it's an ADR. Starbucks got an upgrade. Put spread idea maybe. AZO had earnings. This was a nice gapper. If it didn't, I was hoping it would not go too far, maybe to 1900. And you see, I'm just eyeballing that. But this is a nice turn, breakdown failure, rising 20, 50, 200. Had earnings, but if it's gapping a 1940, then the gap's too big for me. Let's way the heck up here to right at the prior high. But if it were gapping there, we'll come back to it. DBI up 50 cents, no pattern. Econ, no pattern. MDB earnings 520. It's a big gap. Huge. Wow, that's $100 gap or 90. It says the gap's too big. I don't know what to do with that. I don't, like Jay, I don't even know if it's a call or a put spread because you got to see what it's going to do. Hey, do you remember we were talking yesterday about selling the 48 nakeds on Intel? Look at that. One of you all mentioned it in the morning strength. It looked great. And now it's gapping up on news of they're going to spin off some type of EV, something or other. Chug here, a little bottoming pattern we're watching. I don't like these as much with the gap down. That Valley was a nicer one to me. Mr. we talked about. Barron's had the cover article on housing, and I had these three on my watch list. Toll, Len, DHI were the best three. We gave a directional on this one, DHI. Daku I've been watching for a while because it used to be a Wall Street favorite. I got slammed on Friday on earnings. It's stabilized. This could be a day trade. You got a price void here. That could easily rally $5 or so. That's going on the watch list. Cream is Guerrera asking about. Hey, that's a nice gap with a price void. Yeah, this would be a no-brainer put spread. Hey, PayPal bottom right's cooking here a little bit. For a directional, it's a big gap. I'd let it settle down. I'm going to put it right here. Our Walmart put spread's doing good, but yeah, cream. Let's keep an eye on. That's a Wall Street favorite and a Dow 30, of course. Our Walmart is showing a 0 credit